Welcome, everybody, back to Let's Talk Shop, a podcast where we talk shop with industry professionals in the textile, garment decoration, screen printing, embroidery. Today, I'm joined with the one, the only, Britta Sanders from ZSK Embroidery.
Thanks for having me. Hi.
Britta, please tell us, for those that may not know, what is ZSK Embroidery kind of lead the charge for the embroidery realm?
Okay, so we're industrial embroidery machine manufacturer. So this means that we make embroidery machines, like we were the first ones doing it, dating back from 1870 around. We started making textile machineries, and this is somehow the roots we have. So very industrial based, a lot of know-how over the decades. That leads us to today, where we make like tabletop small machines up onto big industrial machines for the industry.
So ZSK, they started 1875, right?
Yes, yeah.
So we're at like 150 years, and the beginning was sewing, correct?
Well, actually, it was Carl Zangs from Crefeld, and he did jacquard weaving machines.
Oh,
so we actually started with weaving, from town history there, and then we moved into like textile finishing and.
Wow, so starting out with some really fundamental textile.
Very fundamental, yes.
Into sewing, evolving, then into embroidery.
Yeah.
And would you say that's still where ZSK is at now? Just focused on the embroidery realm?
Absolutely. We only do embroidery machines, and that's what I always like bring it down on, like a top thread, a bobbin thread, whatever the needle can stitch through. That's embroidery. This is what we focus on. What leaves us, which bringing it down to this basic technology is actually opening a lot of doors, I would say.
Now, our audience may not know this, but you are also from Crefeld.
Yes.
Is that correct?
It's my hometown.
So, growing up, were you aware of ZSK and
Never.
its global dominance in embroidery, or?
Totally not. The day I got the interview was the day I found out about the ZSK company.
So you weren't born to embroider?
Totally, yes. Now looking back, probably yes. Everything led me to this beautiful textile finishing technology, I would say, But with a lot of detours.
I think a lot of screen printers can relate to where they never once growing up said, I'm going to be a screen printer, and then before they know it, they realize, I don't know what else I would have done but screen printing, So it's very interesting that all of these related fields and creative making is very much of that. So tell me a little bit about what it's like to grow up in Crefeld.
Well, it's boring enough to have all the creative ground, I would say. So we always came up with, we kind of gathered together in a way of like everybody has something creative to do. And we're very well networked. So people would be in a band, they would paint, they would street art. So we always had somehow a creative output. But like doing something, let's say, very sophisticated as embroidery, is something that we wouldn't have had in mind. I'm from more a technical background, I would say, with all the creative passion always. So I grew up with a family that, full of engineers, then being like kind of the creative one where everybody wonder, what we're going to do with her. So it was more, I love all this creative stuff. I love music. I love, I always dreamed of like being part of the music industry, but somehow by the day I had to decide for something, I went for something technical, obviously. Somehow always, being sidetracked by creative stuff, it led me to the one and only thing I would think now would make sense for me,
So you're this creative black sheep in your family. You've got a lot of pragmatic thinkers.
Yes.
And you're in this right brain. I love color. I love chaos.
Yep.
You interview for ZSK Embroidery. You get the job. What are you doing?
Yeah. So on my work contract, I signed for software training. This is what I started with. So since I have like a technical embroidery textile education from university, I finished there and then I started with ZSK. I started to train people on how to come from the creative idea to the finished product. So to make sure it turns out how you have it in mind. So somehow how I guide the other creative ones to it. So I started off with doing really the trainings, and now I ended up traveling everywhere, like getting the machines out there, getting the creative idea out there, being kind of the creative one in the company that gets the creative ideas to the machine.
That's how you entered it. What's a day like for you now?
Yeah, that's a very routine question for a very unroutined life, I would say. I try to remember when I had the last routine day. So that would be maybe when I'm not traveling, which is not very often that I'm not traveling. I would be having an office, doing some software training online maybe. I think since COVID it became more and more digital. But most of the time I'm going to trade shows, showing what we have, being the kind of person that also looks after the projects being done. So often I'm at a customer side who has our machine, has the idea, don't know how to get there. So I would be then there on site for 1-2 weeks, make sure that the customer uses the machine in a way that he gets the result or that she's intending.
So as you're doing this liaison work and helping people really get to their goal, right? So, but you are boots on the ground. I'm going to be here with you until we get there.
Exactly.
Wow, that could be a lot of pressure. I could see.
There was a lot of forth and back traveling, forth and back traveling in many cases. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you travel a lot for your job.
Yes. Yeah.
So you get to see all kinds of different markets and things, right? So can you just give me an example of some of the places you've been and kind of what that's like for you in that kind of traveling and what it is what are some of the differences you might find yourself having to kind of navigate through as you, like for instance, you're leaving here and going directly to Brazil, correct?
Yes, exactly.
So, in those kind of transitions, you're dealing with us folks here at Ryonet and Washington State, and then now you're going to go to Brazil. Do you find that you have to change your approach, or is it in fact even the nature of what their goals are those radically different? Do you just what do you see out there?
I get to see quite a lot, and most of it I didn't expect before I went. So the number one rule I put on myself when I go somewhere is not to expect anything. Stay as open as possible to whatever is projects they come up with on their embroidery machines. So I think especially in a very changing market, a very evolving market, you have to stay open, and you have to somehow, always never go somewhere and expect, it's the machine I trained last week, it's the software I trained last week, so I'm sure I'm going to be fine. I know exactly from Monday to Friday what I'm going to tell them. That's never the case.
So you've been with ZSK for how long?
8-9 years now.
So you've seen about the past decade.
Yes.
Has this last 10 years has embroidery seemed to be growing? Is it kind of plateaued, like a lot of older kind of these types of processes that are up to 100 years on and still using same technology? It would seem to me like, and even just to be honest, my familiarity with embroidery is I understand some of the things that you see out there, but I'm really just as unfamiliar with it as your average person. And so in my mind, I would think embroidery is one of those like, that's just for certain old ladies' napkins and such, right?
Yeah, I get that a lot. Yeah. Normally at a booth, people are like, oh yeah, my grandma has one. I'm like, yeah, but there's plenty more outside. So I can say that really in the 8-9 years, I've seen a lot of things changing. Things there are like sold, like projects they are sold now by us. 9 years ago, we said like, oh no, it's not possible. So yeah, important thing I learned was really, nothing is impossible. So let's, invite the customers, see what they want to do, and then we can make it happen.
So you guys, because now we at Ryonet, we understand the demand out there for what seems impossible, and a lot of times you get the same questions over and over again across certain things, especially as maybe something catches on or there's a like type equivalent in something else, and people are wanting to force your equipment to do that said thing. And it seems like that's one of those, it's really challenging for a company to address all of that with, especially machinery like what I've learned from you, which is fairly simple machine, right?
Yeah.
The actual construction of an embroidery machine and the technology behind it is fairly unchanged.
Exactly. I would say the whole embroidery industry has evolved. It has grown. It has not shrunk. People would think, oh yeah, textile industry is not going so well in the Western countries. I would say it is evolving a lot and is changing a lot. But staying, like you say, on the basic technology, bobbin thread, a top thread, a needle that combines them both. And still today, whatever crazy thing you will hear out there, smart textile, charging your phone with your pocket, or, sitting in your car seat being heated, it's all like the same technology, It's always a needle going down, maybe with a conductive thread that might charge your phone, or a copper wire that heats your seat, but the technology stays always the same. It's always a needle, a thread, fixing something.
Now, this is something that I found very interesting, that I, even more than my already layman understanding of embroidery, was this idea that there's in fact so many other applications of embroidery that are almost unseen even. And so this whole smart textiles realm is something that we've heard about in screen printing for sure, and have seen different, I think generally everyone's starting to see a little bit more introduction of smart clothes and things like that, lights and other features in wearable clothing. But it seems like, again, the machine itself, the actual machine is fairly unchanged, even with all of these newer media going through, or different threads, different types of materials you're trying to apply to a textile. And so when we first started talking with ZSK, we started learning about what it is that actually ZSK itself is doing in this realm to take, to move from dumb textiles to smart ones.
Yeah, exactly. We make sure we have a machine that lasts you for long on one side, but also to alter or change with your demands. So we have a lot of customers, even if we only take like the creative, garment, fashion industry, as an example, you can always retrofit your machine with like sequins, or with cording, or with glass beads, or even charging your phone from one day to the other, Wow. It's all possible in one machine. People don't have to come back, buy a new machine. They, contact us and ask us, how does it work? And we say, oh, you need this and this on top of your machine, or you need just 2 days of training with us, and we show you how it works. So we have a lot of customers that have one machine. Maybe they've even bought it secondhand from somebody else because they last so long, and they always manage to somehow match it to what they want to do. And if you just take this, creative industry, it's just so many things. Like even customers don't know what they can do with it, and how their business can evolve. So they maybe have in mind, oh, I have the vision, I want to embroider hats.
Cats?
Cats. I want to embroider cats. I can do cats.
Don't embroider your cat.
Please, out there, don't embroider your cat. Go for it. You would then come up, they would like contact me, I don't know, a couple of months later, and they want to do like 3D foam, or they want to, I don't know, light up the hat by like, doing like circuit boards. It's crazy. Like you can, and it's really exciting to see how people use the machine, and how they are using the machine for their vision. And it's not like at some point you're growing out of your machine. The machine is somehow by your side, and by your side with your business, let's say.
So building off of that, as we were talking, just over the past 8 months or so, as we've learned more and more about ZSK, I learned that part of your kind of motivation for this advancement in better technology behind the kind of the brains of your machines is kind of this effort towards this Industry 4.0 kind of concept. Can you explain a little bit why that's important to ZSK?
Yeah. So, like you said, in the beginning of the talk, we're like there right from the beginning with a very like basic technology, and then of course there are tons of others in the market that also do embroidery machines. And then I'm always being asked like, oh, what makes your machine different from the others? And I would say like, you find tons of good embroidery machines out there, but we also focus a lot on not just the technology, because like you said, it stays unchanged, but you have all this downtime in between. You know, you see all this extra part in your embroidery business apart from a machine making a stitch. So the fastest machine in the world doesn't give you anything if it's standing, because you don't have your business organized, right? So we, speaking of Industry 4.0, is that we can address this and we grow with it because we find digital ways to also reduce this time in between. So we come up with our own software. This is all done under one roof. And the software that we offer to minimize this downtime is also made by people that see the machine being produced every day, right? So we all know, okay, what is causing all this downtime, or what is like, you know, where are always my thread breaks or whatever. So we have, for example, come up with a monitoring software that, like, you know, like even if you have 3 production plants all over the world, you manage to like monitor them every day. And this is sort of things where we try to not make the machine faster and faster and faster, but also to like give the people ways to like also minimize all the work time on the, you know, on the extra boring stuff apart from embroidery, you know. If you see machine running, it's fascinating. I still find it today. But what is for me really annoying is like getting the design in place. You know, I already have made my design. I have matched my machine. But now, I don't know, the machine is making another design. So I could use the other one. So if you think this in a grand scale, if you have multiple machines, you can then see, oh, which one is the best matching one? Which one has the colors already on that I'm using? So all this time that is being reduced by organizing a business, and our like digital solutions somehow help you with that, making your embroidery day fun, watching running producing machines, you know.
Yeah, the more you can, you know, and that's, I see a lot of that too. It's when we work with customers and just print shops in general. You know, it's like you want to max out your current setup before you move forward, because then you kind of have a really good idea of what your expansion would be, to be as like effective and as efficient as you can be with not just your investment of dollars, but time, commitments in all of the areas of your business. And so with ZSK and the embroidery machines, there is this realm where it seems as though this kind of idea of like how many heads or how many, it's a bit more about how active can you keep your machine, it seems.
Exactly.
So that is, so you're saying that the real kind of concentration right now is eliminating every inefficiency outside of that.
I think what costs you money is inefficiency when your machine is waiting for you to get ready, and sources of error. And both can be minimized with digital solutions. For example, we have also positioning systems where you project an image, make sure it goes exactly on the spot on your garment where you want to have it. Or we have a very, let's say, user-friendly interface where you have images so people don't, you know, need to know every English word on the screen.
Or just read it all.
Right?
You can print by or
exactly.
Embroider by picture. Yeah.
Exactly. So we try to also eliminate all the errors being, you know, possible. Scrap, we want to minimize like scrapping pieces. You can put in barcoding from the order online up until the finished product. You can get a barcode and trace everything. Make sure not the wrong color is loaded. This is causing a lot of headaches sometimes. So you want to eliminate time in between. You want to eliminate waiting time and sources of errors. I would say this is what makes your embroidery day not fun, you know?
Well, speaking of fun, what are some of the most fun kind of embroidery things, or like maybe more than just the most mind-blowing stuff you've seen being produced out there off of ZSK machines?
Oh,
I know it's a tough question.
Tough question. Give me a minute.
Yeah, think through it. I heard you mention earlier, you know, and this may not be mind-blowing for some people, but just the concept to me is like, wow, that's quite the endeavor. You were talking about sails for sailboats.
Yeah.
And that's an embroidered object that is, you know, if anyone has seen a sail, they're gigantic, 20, 30 feet, no problem.
Yeah.
Anything else like that? I mean, that blew my mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like on one end, your eyes become more open in the world. Like how do you say? The day you start doing embroidery, you won't stop seeing embroidery. So from one side, you see it out there, but then seeing what customers do is also crazy. Like car mats, shoes. I did pockets. I did car. I did. Oh God, I don't know where to start. Honestly, it's like shoe soles. I did shoe soles. I did
the soles. That was interesting.
Yeah, I did soles, and I did circuit boards, full circuit boards, where you would charge things, or it's foam.
And these are things that customers can get into.
Yeah,
if they have the drive. It sounds
amazing, but it comes all down to a stitch. It all comes down to a stitch.
And so it's not like a special thing. Like if you get the setup, you can start trying these processes yourself.
I've seen embroidery which only consists of stitches. So you would embroider on something, and this on something has been eliminated by water, and then you have like a 3D piece. So there's nothing that you cannot do. A lot of what do you call it? Epoxy. You can fix things in epoxy. Mm-hmm.
Like a resin.
We've done car wheels. We've done wheels for like windmills. It's crazy. It's everything. It's a tough question.
Yeah, and it's funny because as you talk about this, I think about 3D printing, right? Mm-hmm. In that way, where it's like and that has obviously that's still pretty new technology and things, but to start hearing about how this realm of this aspect of adding in, you were mentioning there's like a silver thread, is that right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You
for
use
like
this,
circuit boards,
and it's conductive for the electricity, so you can hook a little battery to it and have a little LED going.
Or you can take a lot of medical applications. So it's sometimes you do something really like, what do you call it in English? Like a heartbeat. When you take your heartbeat.
Oh, you could measure your pulse.
Yes,
yeah.
And you would wear the T-shirt and you can send the data directly to the doctor. It's all embroidered. All embroidered.
Yeah, and if you had restrictions on what you could. Oh wow, so medical applications.
Medical application, automotive industry. If you look closely in the really luxurious cars, they all have very fancy seams around with some perforation holes, and the seam would be exactly in between the perforation holes, all embroidered.
Yeah, very custom, high-end kind of embroidery work.
Yeah. Since it is a digital process to make the design still, there's nothing you cannot match to each other,
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that's, definitely a challenge across anything where you're taking an image or a design of sorts and trying to apply it. What in screen printing, the process generally is you are trying to separate it out by colors, and is it very different than that? I mean, it seems like it would be close to that. How cumbersome is the digital side of this realm?
So it's people normally. Sorry, go on.
The art side more.
Yeah, the art.
Yeah.
So basically, often I have people in training for graphic design, so they know maybe some vectorizing designs for you would think in layers and color separation, right? The same goes for embroidery. It's just that I always, first day on the software training, I tell people your brain is in the machine. The machine doesn't know anything about you, don't tell it to, So what you think is more in a path, right? It's as a child you did these mazes, right? You're not allowed to put the pencil up. That's kind of the thing with the embroidery. So you would load in an image or a vector graphic, and then you would kind of fill it by stitching. Of course, there are a lot of automation. There is automation out there. We have automation, digitizing, but it's the same putting, maybe this from taking photos through the window, and then you want this automatically screen printed, right? You have a few steps in between, and this is kind of the effort that you have to put in, but also that's all that you have to do, really.
Well, I think everyone's familiar with digitizing through the spam emails. I think everyone gets in this realm. If you are in this industry and you have an Instagram and you have an email, it's you're bound to get a request for digitizing, which always made me wonder, what is it? Why is this such a hot thing to try to cold hit people up and see if you need digitizing?
Yeah.
Is it that complicated, or is it that What about, is there a big discrepancy between really bad digitizing and really good digitizing? Is that probably what we're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. There is like with, I guess, all the other digitizing, digital services, you have the good, like high quality. What is it? Like you can be cheap, you can be good, and you can be fast, right? Yeah,
yes, of course.
same goes for digitizing. I feel like it's still a separate process, so it is something that people potentially outsource, since it is, you need somebody there that has ever seen a machine running, and you need to digitize it in a way, right? So this is why people, when they get into the business, get their first machine, they want one thing to master. They don't want to master a machine and then a whole digitizing process. So the first thing they're going to outsource is the digitizing. I always experience that they come back from, sooner or later and say, look, okay, I need some sort of software. Because even if you keep it a separate outsourced process, you would still want to communicate with them. Say, oh, I want it on a cap now, I want it on a shoe. It has different requirements. Yeah, it's not a paper; it's still a textile that moves, right? So you would still want to discuss with somebody that knows about textiles. So a lot of people then end up having their own digitizing software in-house to alter things, to understand what do I have to adjust in order to make it not only perfect quality, but also to minimize time again. Yeah, a lot of digitizing services charge you by stitch count, for example, and then depending what kind of stitch count you get, you could save maybe a few stitches to make it more efficient. So people still eventually want to understand how to make a design, so they understand why their machine behaves in a certain way.
Right. So, which is, that makes a lot of sense to relate it to screen printing. Usually when you're starting out, you're trying to just learn what is best practice to get a screen made in the most general way. And then as you learn that, then you start to hone in on the variables and how you can really get the best result possible from this particular design. And so for me, this idea of representing, your colors with stitches or counting in stitches is because we count in dots over here, so your count, is that a common metric to use? Is stitch by stitch? Is that almost all things are counted by stitch? What is kind of your max stitch realm for your standard single head machine? What can you pull off with that? How many stitches, just right off the top?
Oh, how many stitches or the size?
But
the size will be millimeters.
Well, So because you.
I have no idea about inches.
No, that's okay. How many millimeters would a standard design be, and then how many stitches does that have?
Okay, so you could do like a biker's jacket back patch, right?
Yeah, perfect. Because that's what I immediately want to embroider first. My first gang jacket.
Yep.
Get it out there. Me and my bros. We're riding our hogs.
Yeah. So this would be a big job. Embroiderers love these kind of jobs because it's just a high stitch count, maybe 120, 150,000 stitches. Then assuming the machine runs at 1,000 stitches per minute, you can already estimate, okay, the worst thing I have to do is I just have to change the bobbin every 60,000 stitches. So this is going to be a job. This is like very forgiving, you put in a proper solid piece of fabric and then it can just run. And then
so you bring up something interesting there. You mentioned that embroiderers love these kinds. Now, that seems interesting to me because I know from a screen printing realm, if you have somebody that's coming in and they want a very large, very complicated thing, you are like, you can charge a premium, sure, and all that, but it almost seems like for embroidery, there's almost the desire to have like a really big one print, or what I keep using print because, but like it's great to do just the one, and for screen printers, doing a one-off is like the worst.
It depends a little bit. I mean, people have to pay for it, right? Yeah. I mean, the machine will be blocked for this amount of time until this thing is done.
Right.
Right. So it's.
But to your point, that you want that machine running as consistent as possible, no downtime as much as possible. That's going to be your best return.
Yeah.
And so is that partially why it is that way? So instead of the downtime in between a cap and you have to swap it out and all that, it's great if you can let that thing run, charging by the stitch and the occupation of the machine. Yeah. The longer you can do that, the better. And that
more
is
or less, yeah.
Well,
it depends also a little bit on what you're like. What your like kind of what's your background is, what your history is, you know. But a lot of people then would go for the big designs. Most of them outsource then the digitizing, because if it's a big design, it's often very detailed. Unless otherwise you would have done screen printing, right? I guess I don't know. So
well, yes.
I love the mix, by the way. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's interesting. The scalability of artwork in that way. So because it is a bit different in the sense of you have those stitch counts, and like you're saying, as it scales, you kind of have to really think differently.
Oh, you have to redigitize. The same crate, like if I have my biker's gang design and it's like left chest, very small, you can do one order, and then if you go on the back side, like really big, you would do a full different stitch file, right? Because you have... Embroidery brings kind of the third dimension. So I always take the horse from like this very luxurious car manufacturer. It can be like a blank black horse, but it can be also like a horse having like hair and muscles. Like embroidery can really make it, three-dimensional. And I think that goes the same for like if you go like for grand scale designs. You can like, it's an art. It's really an art form, I would say, digitizing. You can really concentrate and spend days on one single element of your big design. And I know a lot of embroiderers, they actually are doing painting as well. So they think of layering, what do I do first, like what do I put in detail. It is still an art form, I would say. And this is why maybe some people are a little bit afraid of it. When they have their machine, they love their machine and like, oh, this is like black magic to make like a, an embroidery file in a separate process. Yeah. And I want to take this fear away. It is really something you can get done.
Yeah. What would you name your gang?
Oh, good point. The Red Embroiderers, I guess.
Okay, well that's...
Red Cat Embroiderers.
I'm not too afraid of that gang.
No, right? Man, okay.
They sound cool.
Cool, right?
Sound like
we're the weirdos.
They're weird, but they're creative.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. So... as far as the U.S. embroidery market, what have you seen as the kind of, what are the main go-tos, but then what are maybe some of the things that you are seeing starting to catch on? Have you seen any applications or certain types of medias that are starting to catch on again?
Yeah, absolutely. I think and I think this is a bit also the history of our new collaboration. I see a lot of people out there that want to mix media. So you have more and more a thread that can be printed, or you would have an embroidery and you would print onto it so that you get the best out of both worlds, right? So embroidery is still many colors means many threads, but you have the third dimension. Printing is really, you have like all the color range and you want the best out of both worlds. So I've seen more and more like automations, camera systems that would match them up. And like even if you put it off a little bit, the print would still be perfectly in place with the embroidery. Especially in the U.S. market, I'm very happy to see that all the chenille embroidery is coming back. Do you call it chenille, right? Like this. Like Letterman jackets.
That's what I know it
jackets.
as. Yeah, it's kind of those letters on your Letterman's jackets when you.
That's That's actually a different machine. So it's like a one thread system, but still I feel like it's coming back and people appreciate like these retro look, but still like mixing it with new media.
And I think that's again, we're seeing it across every aspect of that. We call it retro. Maybe it's just the idea of the cycle of stuff. There's
absolutely.
only so many things that we have under this, and then we're like, it's cool. Letterman's jackets. Yeah. Well, they were cool in the 90s. Cool in 2024. Exactly, yeah. And it's so interesting to see those brought back. And I think that's part of that like resurgence of, embroidery is really cool and hot on shirts right now, and And it might be one of those, it's a fad there, it goes down, but it's coming right back in 5 years. You know, it's those kinds of cycles that are very interesting.
And it always be mixed in a different way, I think. So even this chenille technique that would now be mixed with like standard embroidery being printed, and you really see a mix of everything because people start to appreciate these, you know, techniques that have always been there, and now they want to challenge them, I feel. So.
Yeah, I know. For us, we're going to be kicking off trying to do some embroidery and screen print designs. Yes. I'm hopeful that you know, and for me, I'm going to be just starting in on it. But in some ways, it makes me think you can get away with being simpler in screen printing and simpler in embroidery, and come up with some really intricate, cool designs without doing either process too complex. Yeah. And you merge them together. And so that's what I'm really excited about in being able to either amplify screen print designs with embroidery, or the inverse, amplify embroidery designs with screen printing, finding what's kind of best in each, or what you can really maximize out of each, and then combining them together.
Yeah. I think that's what the whole industry, I don't know, the more I'm in there, it's more challenging to go back to the basics and question the basics. So I love the fact that we mix the media now, and really looking forward to this, right? Really
so
one on top of the other.
So we are definitely starting in on, you know, it's about time. Ryonet is going embroidery. We are going to be offering up ZSK machines. We did a lot of research and looked into who we wanted to partner with, and that's one of the reasons why, you know, we felt so strongly with ZSK, and then we immediately felt the return interest in the shared values of the interest in the success of the end user. You know, that's so crucial, and it's more important than overall sales. Right, and that was something you guys mimicked very early on, and really made clear as your focus is not moving as much as you can, but rather setting people up to really love this stuff and really succeed at it and grow businesses off of it. And so that was one of the main, you know, like those clicks happened. And then the other thing that was so exciting was hearing about how that commitment translates through into the efforts towards digitizing, making this simpler, breaking this down, making it to where you can do more and more things with your singular machine. And that investment in the technology side of the brains, the everything else, which is what was very clear that you took that so seriously, was that you weren't trying to find how many different models could we make to try to specialize it and niche out for people, and then that's all we're looking at. Instead, you looked at how can we improve the environment that they're working in, the flow that they deal with, and make all the possible improvements you can over time. And that is definitely in the values and spirit of Ryonet as well, the constant improvement of where it makes sense. The don't fix what's not broken, you know, focus on the broken areas or the challenging areas. What else would you like to, you know, if you had a 30-second spot to make your case as to why embroidery is one of the coolest ways you can decorate a garment?
Yes.
What's your pitch?
Oof.
Elevator pitch.
Okay, so I can only remember myself when I came from this very more music background, and I always wanted to be part of it. Everyone was printing, and I ended up in embroidery. I love the fact that I can go dressed up to a business meeting and still have a little bit of a, you know, elegance with a touch of a middle finger. It's really like this, you know, embroidery is the most sophisticated technology, I would say. And it's still like you can, the message counts, right? And the message is what is on the graphic, and embroidery is the technology. This is like, you know, a lot of heart is put in there to get the message out there.
So your take on it is the reason why you want to go embroidery is because it's anti-establishment.
Exactly.
Are you sure you're not a screen printer?
Yeah, in my heart, and this is why I think, why I'm needed there.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting is we are entering that realm where those lines are blurring more and more. You know, we're constantly having to check ourselves. I constantly use very specific screen print language towards all of these things because I'm so focused on it. But we're starting to really open it up.
And we have to. I think the world is changing so fast, and you have to find creative ways to get your business going and to have your message out there. So I think we have to somehow not focus on what we've been done for 10 years, right? We want to look what the others do.
Yeah, and see what the next 10 years might mean.
Looking forward to it.
I am too.
Should not be afraid. What can possibly go wrong, right?
I am looking forward to the next 10 years, regardless of what happens.
Yes, nice.
No, so I think with that, it's been great having you here. You were here for our event. You've been training our team all week. You've been downloading everything you can. It's been just a mind-blowing experience in a way unexpected, to learn how this is going to be such a great addition to what we offer, how we can help you guys bring this out there more and grow it here in the U.S. more and get more people understanding the value and the opportunity you have.
Yeah.
If you're a screen printer, you can start looking at how this could change, what you can offer. If you're an embroiderer, we're really trying to look at how, you might be able to enhance your embroidery by screen print. They are mixing together, and if you're not on board, you're gonna fall behind. So
exactly.
Get with it.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's really, really looking forward to this. Well,
yeah. And so with that, we'll see you on the next one.
Thanks.